Hi, good morning, guys. My name is Ogechi, and I run Maverick Automobiles. Over time, people have asked me what are the things to check out for in a vehicle. How do you know a car is having mechanical problems? How do you identify some of these mechanical problems and all of that? So I'm just going to mention a few things, and hopefully we'll get some knowledge from that. Now, some of the knowledge a lot of persons have as it concerns mechanical issues and cars comes from experience. So it takes some deep knowledge to identify some problems, while some other ones are just things you can easily spot or things you can easily detect on your own. When you see a vehicle, and the basic for me, like, I'm going to use myself as an example. When I see a vehicle, the first thing I check is to look at the VIN number or the chassis number. Now, that way I would know first the year of the vehicle. I would also know the of course the manufacturer year, the country is coming from. That way I'll have an idea of what to expect. A lot of cars from America can actually be very abused. That's from North America, I mean, can actually be very abused. While some that have been used in Asia, in the UAE, and all that, can be fair. It can be fair to say they were better used or probably better maintained. Yes, a lot of people say Arabs rock their cars to the very last, but I'm digressing. So yeah, when I look at the chassis number, I would know if that car is accident free. Of course, I'll run it online and find out if it's accident free, find out the year it was manufactured, and find out the country from where it's coming from. Having done that, I'll go to the engine room. Now, a scan of the engine room would tell me how that vehicle was used. One of the things I look out for when I open the engine room or the bonnet area of a car is to be sure there are no oil spills, there are no gum, what do they call it, adhesives, running around the engine area, the top of the engine, the mid side of the engine, the sides of the engine. And you also need to know if the car is a timing chain or a timing belt, if it's direct overhead cam, or if it is the whole VVTi, all of that. Then I'll check out for straying wires, to be sure the electrical the electrical integrity of the vehicle is still intact. Many people would rather use roadside electricians than having a proper professional diagnose a vehicle and tell them what is wrong. They would rather just go buy wires, cut here, join there. Now, as little as fuses of 100 naira, I see people who tend to use wires to join the terminals or the two legs. Let permit you to use that for the fuses together. Now, instead of just going to the market, get this thing for 100 naira or 150 at most, you can even buy a pack for 1,000 and you have many of them in it. But no, they rather just get wires to join fuses and have at it. So these are things I look out for. If I'm done with the engine room, then I'll check the interiors, but that's not mechanical now. I'll take the car for a drive. Now I'm trying to listen to the transmission, I'm trying to listen to the engine, I'm trying to listen to the suspensions. Whilst the suspension may not be of utmost importance, is we know our country and we know how terrible our roads can be. So it's not out of place. Let me use that. It's not out of place to see a vehicle that has one or two suspension noises. It could be linkages, could be the shock absorbers, it could be the tie rod ends, it could be anything. It could even be the driving shaft. It could be anything at all. So I'm not so keen on the suspension, except it has to do with the shaft, but I'm coming to that. Now, when I listen to the engine, if an engine is sputtering, it's a sign that there could be an underlying problem. If an engine is, I use the word grunting because there's this that you hear when you rev that engine to say when you hold it at maybe 1,200 RPM, you start hearing some some grunt like that is not meant to be there. It's a sign that the crankshaft or the metals are gradually giving way or are gradually developing gaps within them. It's also possible it could be from the camshaft or the top of the engine. It could be a sign that the oil pump is failing. It's not pumping oil properly. It's not sending oil to the top of the engine, or it's not circulating oil properly across or within the engine. Now, if an engine is smoking, it's an indication of excess consumption of oil. It's an indication of worn out engine parts. It could be an indication of overheating. It could be an indication of a handful of things. So if an unusual smoke is coming out from the engine, it's a red flag. It's up to you to, determine with your technician or mechanic how to proceed from there. That is that. Then now, I also tend to look at the transmission. Now, the transmission is very important because, as against or unlike the engine, the transmission is difficult to fix. There are people who still don't believe they can fix the transmission. I'm of that school of thought, because transmission don't show me pepper. Now you get to buy a vehicle, and when you shift to reverse or drive, there shouldn't be a jerk, except that car is on a slope. Now, if you feel a jerk when you engage your transmission, it could be as a result of a lot of things. It could be the dirty transmission oil. It could be dirty transmission filter. It could be worn out fibers. It could be even the valve body, what you call the transmission control unit or the transmission control module or the transmission control, the TCU or the TCM, yes. So that's what you call the brain box of the gear. It could be any of this. So it's also I'm coming. It's also a factor. It's also a factor to consider when you're trying to diagnose or get your car. You look out for some of these things. Now, if coming back to the suspension, I could manage a car that has a bad shock absorbers that can be changed. I could manage a car that has bad linkages and all of that. Those can be changed. I could manage thyroid ends being bad. That can be changed. But when the driving shaft is bad, you need to tread carefully. It means it's already impacting. When the shaft is the part that connects the steering wheel to the transmission. Let me just put it that way. Now it rolls. It is what tells the wheels to roll according to the speed of the gear. Now, if the transmission is going bad, chances are it's already affecting the gearbox. I mean, chances are, not all. It does not always happen that way, but it's a likelihood that it's already affecting the transmission, and you need to tread carefully. You need to have an expert look at it for you and all that. Now, I believe the onboard diagnostic system, what you call the OBD2, is something everybody should have. If you're going to get a vehicle, if you're going to have a car that you're always using, I move around with my own. It should be somewhere in this car. I move around with it. So whenever something happens on the road, I'm driving and I start noticing something unusual from my vehicle, I just bring out my OBD2, plug into the system, and diagnose the vehicle. Now, some diagnostic tools has made it so easy to look at. When you see a fault, you just take the code, put it online, and you're going to see exactly what is wrong with that vehicle. You can even see pictures to know the part you're meant to change or the part that is faulty. So that way it makes things easy. Now, back to how to detect some of these problems. Another thing to look out for is the steering wheel. The steering is very important. Is as important as the braking system, is as important as the engine, is as important as any other part of the vehicle. It's the steering that will determine if you're going to be able to veer off an impending danger, if you're going to avoid an impending collision, if you're going to be able to steer clear of issues on the road, potholes. Now, a good car should have a free steering. A lot of cars are coming out now with the electric steering distribution system, where there is no oil or anything. Normally, I would have said one of the things to check out for if your steering is stiff is to check the oil level of the steering pump. Check your steering rack, because most times the steering rack, most times it can be a leaking hose, most times it can just be that the steering is bad and needs to be changed. Now, if you're dealing with a car with an electric steering, then it's more complicated than that. The system may have to be completely changed. Sometimes it can be the steering angle sensor. You see the lines you see the signs on the dashboard, on the instrument cluster, and all of that. So then you go to the brakes. As a rule, I'm very uncomfortable with a car that is showing ABS. I mean, I'm not the ABS where you on the ignition, every other light comes up, you start the car, all the lights should go off. Now, if the ABS stays, I am usually very uncomfortable driving such a car. And the reason is simple. The ABS is like, for many cars, the ABS is like the central unit of a lot of things happening in that vehicle. For some cars, the ABS controls the steering, controls the wheels, controls the braking system, controls a whole lot, controls even the speed sensors, controls the speed clock and all of that. Now, if the ABS in the car is bad, it is a risk driving that vehicle. And these are some of the things you need to check out for. If the brakes of the car is squealing, they are shouting, or they're making noises, you have to check them out. It means they need changing. These are signs, these are things to look out for when you're either getting a vehicle, or when you're either we're using a vehicle and you try to know or troubleshoot what could be wrong with your car. Now, these are the things you look out for. The smoking on the engine noises, transmission, if it's delaying to transmit from 1 to 2 to 3, if it's heating, if there's a jerk before it transmits. Then also check out for the fuel line. How's the supply like? Is the car idling smoothly, or is it idling roughly? By idling, I mean what people say, warming your car. When you start the car and you leave it, how is the idling? Yes, on cold start, many cars tend to go above 1000 RPM. Now, when the engine distributes oil completely, that RPM drops to about 800, 1000, maybe 600 for some cars. Now, if your car is idling, you look at the RPM indicator, RPM pointer. It should be steady. It should stay at a place. I wish I could, switch and show you an example. It should stay at a place. If while your car is idling and the RPM pointer is shaking, going up, coming down, going up, coming down, is an indicator of a rough idling on the engine part. Now, you need to check out your fuel supply. You need to check out that your nozzles or the nozzles of the vehicle are all okay. You need to check out that it's not misfiring. You need to check out that it could be as a lot of even the airflow meter can make that to happen. Now, like I said, a lot of these things require some in-depth knowledge to be able to decipher or to be able to detect. While some of them are just pretty easy, like some I've explained now, are pretty easy to see. There are things you can actually see visibly yourself on your eyes. Of course, you don't need an expert to tell you that a car is either smoking or not. Except on a rainy day where you have vapor coming out of the exhaust system, a car shouldn't be smoking. Blue smoke, black smoke, gray smoke, whatever, it shouldn't be. Now, apart from all these things, a lot of people are keen on catalytic converters and everything. Yes, you can check for catalytic converters. You can check if the car has catalyst, or what you call Indomie. You can check, but basically the work of catalyst is to reduce emissions. Now, if your vehicle is pretty new, or if you're driving in some countries that have emission laws that are very strict, then your catalyst is very important. It has to be present. For our country here, it's unfortunate when you go for vehicle testing, your vehicle can actually pass. I've seen where vehicles without catalyst pass the VIO test, and I'm like, so what's the essence of the testing? So, but then, yes, it's important you check if your car has a catalyst. If it doesn't, it's really not a problem. It may have been removed to save the engine from knocking. When some catalysts get congealed or get blocked in the muffler or in the exhaust system, they tend to send back emissions into the engine and could cause a lot of problems. I've had that problem. In fact, recently I had a car that just knocked engine, and just because the catalyst blocked. So yes, these things happen, and you need to know what you're doing. the state of the economy today is not something you should just get a vehicle and then start moving. You need to know that you're not buying a money pit for yourself, or you need to know that your financial capacity can handle whatever that vehicle throws at you, in the unlikely event that you get a bad car or you get a car that is not holy. So that'll be it. Sorry, it's a long video, but I think if you had watched to this point, then I know you must have gleaned one or two things off what I just shared. So remember, we still sell cars at Maverick Automobiles, and our website is www.maverickautomobiles.com. We're on YouTube, we are on Facebook, of course, and we believe that hopefully your money is going to complete and you're going to buy a car from us. Have a great week ahead of you.